this video, we're going to look at some useful tips and phrases for writing complaints. Firstly, before you send any kind of complaint, it's important to ask yourself if you are angry. Very often, if there's something that makes us angry, we want to write a complaint about it and deal with the issue immediately. Although you might feel better about the situation shortly after writing the complaint, there's a good chance that you'll regret it later on. You might damage your relationship, you might lose credibility, or in more serious cases, you could damage your career. So make sure that before you hit the send button, you're aware if you're angry. If so, save the email as a draft and come back to it a few hours later. In most situations, you'll choose to edit your angry draft and rewrite it in a more diplomatic, polite manner. The next thing to remember, and this is the same with any written document, is to think about what you want from the communication. What results are you looking for? And what do you need to say, and how do you need to say it in order to get the outcome that you're looking for? So, if the result you want is to get a refund, for example, keep that in mind from the start and write your complaint accordingly with your aim in mind. If you're looking to get some kind of compensation, remember that you need to write in such a way that gets the reader to take action. Now remember that complaints need to be written in quite a formal style, and they need to focus on the most important facts. So don't give any unnecessary background information. Keep the content relevant and focus on the key points. Here's what you need to include in your letter of complaint. Firstly, you need to include your reason for writing. For example, I'm writing to express my disappointment and surprise at the error. You need to include what went wrong, so some relevant details about the problem. And you'll also need to include what you would like to happen next, so what the solution is. Now here are some other pointers to make sure that you get the best results that you want from your complaints. Now complaint letters are usually written in a formal style, so make sure that you keep a consistent tone with a good level of formality from the start. You can also use passives to be less direct and more formal. So for example, I was served quickly. And make sure that you use yours faithfully at the end to sign off if you don't know the name of the person you're writing to. We're going to look at a letter of complaint that's been written by an angry customer who hasn't received the product he ordered. Firstly, see if you can find any problems in the way it has been written.
Let's check the answers and see how you did.
The first thing to notice here is that the writer has started the letter with the greeting, "Dear Sirs." This is quite an old-fashioned way of writing, and it could potentially offend the reader if they're female. Now the second thing to notice here is the part which says, "which means I've been waiting for 2 months without it." Firstly, it's quite redundant because the order date has already been mentioned. There is also no need to write with this much emotion. When writing a letter of complaint, it's more important to stick to the facts. The next issue is the exclamation marks at the end of the sentence, which again are not needed as they do not add anything to the overall message, apart from making the writer appear to be extra angry when writing the letter. Another issue is this line, "You haven't bothered to answer me." It's important to avoid making accusations in a complaint letter, and you should really just stick to the facts. The writer does not know for sure that his emails were ignored. He only knows for sure that he has not received a reply. The part in the letter when Mr. Redwoods writes, "It's not fair," once again shows emotion rather than sticking to the facts. This is followed up with a threat to sue the company. "I'll sue you." As angry or disappointed in the service received as the writer is, it's important not to make threats or use capital letters in a letter of complaint. The next part of the letter which needs to be looked at is the final line where Mr. Edwards refers to the way his current phone is embarrassing him and destroying his reputation. Not only is this likely to make him lose credibility and appear to have written the letter whilst in a rage, it does not focus on any kind of solution and only gives further, irrelevant information. By the end of the letter, the writer should be looking at ways to solve the issue and declaring the action that he would like to be taken to ensure the situation is resolved. Finally, the sign-off should be consistent with the greeting. So, if the writer does not know the name of the recipient, as indicated by the greeting, "Dear Sirs," he should use the sign-off "Yours faithfully," rather than "Sincerely," which is used for people whose name we already know. Now it's your turn. See if you can rewrite Mr. Edwards' email in a more professional and diplomatic way that will see him get the results he wants from his letter of complaint.
Let's check the answers and see how you did. Excellent!
Now that we've completed the lesson, you're able to write a letter of complaint in a more professional manner using the correct etiquette. See you again next time for the next session of Writing for Business.